Hello my lovelies, welcome back to my channel. This is your girl Angel from Simply Angel Tia, and in this video I'm going to make a Christmas hat or just holiday hat altogether, because it doesn't have to be one that you wear on Christmas and then pack it away until next Christmas. This is something that you can wear all throughout the holidays obviously, but we all know we reach out for that red outfit, red hat, red whatever on Christmas Day just because it is the holidays. Okay, so this is a hat that I'm making with you guys today. That is going to be a holiday hat. So yeah, it looks like this. I'm gonna put a pompon on it just like we have it here. But just as I will explain, I do have a video on how to make pompons, so please go ahead and make that because I will not be showing how to make a pompon in the video. So please go and check the video on my channel and I'll link it in the description box below. But I will show you guys how to do this whole part of the hat and of course how to put the pompon on as it is here. Yeah, so that is pretty much it. This hat is made to be a little bit long like this, so as you can see. It has a little bit of a long length to it. I tend to make my hats like this because I want the ability to be able to fold it like this. So you pull it really tight down your head and then you can fold it to have even more warmth around your ears. So this part of it kind of creates like an ear warmer almost when you fold it like this. So I usually like to do it like this, and especially with this pattern here, as you can see, we do the puff stitches here and it's a little bit gappy. This part here is a little bit tight, but this side is a little bit gappy. So if it's a really cold winter day and it's windy, you may feel some cold coming through this gappy area. So having it folded like this will just kind of reinforce the warmth that way. Okay, all right, so let's not talk too much and go ahead and get started. So go grab everything that you need. Of course, you don't have to make it in these colors. You can make this exact same pattern in whatever colors you want, so you can wear it whenever you want. But since this is more like a holiday hat, if you're looking to do these colors, then please go ahead and grab them and then we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, my lovelies, so before we get this project started, I'm going to show you the materials that I'm using for it. And as you can see here, I have my 2 balls of yarns. These are just scrap yarns that I had laying around leftover from previous projects. These are both medium weight number 4 acrylic, 100% acrylic yarn. So you can definitely use any yarn of your choosing. For a crochet hook, I'll be using a 5mm crochet hook or H8 US. And I'm going to use a tape measure to determine the size. I have some stitch markers here. I have a darning needle, and of course we always need a scissors. Okay, all right, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, my lovelies, so I'm going to get the project started here, and as you can see, I have a long chain left here, or a long string hanging, and this is just gonna be for me to be able to join the 2 sides of our hat together. So you don't have to do it this way. You can always make sure you have some leftover yarn to work with at the end, especially to be able to sew the 2 sides together. Okay, but this is usually how I start most of my projects. So I'm going to do a slip knot here so I can do my foundation chain. So I'm just going to do my slip knot like that, and of course go ahead and do your slip knot however you usually do it. And then I'm going to do a chain of 45 plus 1, so 45 and then 1, which will make it 46. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so I've done my chain of 46 here. Like I said, 45 stitches plus 1. And this is going to be the size of our hat. And by size, I mean the length of it, okay? So this is going to be the length of my hat. If you're looking to do a hat that is a little bit smaller, I'm making a medium size, small to medium size. So if you're making something a little bit more smaller, then you would automatically do less chains than that. And if you want something that has a lot more depth to it, then you would do more chains than what I have here, okay? All right. Now I am going to turn my work like this, and I'm going to start with our first row. Now the 46th chain that we created, we're going to skip. And in the second one right there, I am going to go into it and do a half double crochet. Okay, so yarn over, grab the back of the foundation chain, and not the very first one, but the one right after that one. And you're going to have 3 loops on the hook like this, and you're going to go yarn over and go through all 3 loops. Okay, And then you're going to do the same thing again, and you're going to go into the second stitch, and you're going to grab the back of the foundation chain and do your second half double crochet. And you're going to continue to do this pretty much until you have 5 stitches to go. And then with those 5 stitches, we are going to do something a little bit different. So what you can do right now, and this is why we have the stitch markers, if you want, you can go ahead and count out your 5 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then in that 5th one, put a stitch marker into it. Okay, and you're going to work your half double crochet stitches until you get to this very second last, or the last one from the 5 remaining. And then you come back and I will show you what to do with those remaining 5 stitches. But for now, just work your half double crochet stitches in the back of the foundation chain until you get to the stitch marker. Okay, see you guys in a bit. Okay, my lovelies, so I do have my 5 stitches left here, and as you can see, I've worked my remaining 40 stitches in just the half double crochet in the back loop of the foundation chain. And so now that I've reached here, I'm just going to remove the stitch marker for now, put it down, and in that stitch where the stitch marker was, I'm going to go in and do a single crochet. Okay, so I'm going to do a single crochet there. I'm going to take my stitch marker, put it back in that same spot in that stitch, and then I'm going to finish the remaining 4 stitches by doing the single crochet stitch. Okay, so we're just kind of doing a little bit of a smaller stitch for the final 5 stitches, and this is just to kind of bring it in a little bit for the top of the hat for us. Okay, so just something like that. Okay, so as you can see, it's a little bit skinnier here, and it gets a little bit bigger on these remaining stitches here. And then to start row 2, which is going to be your repeat row for this section, you're going to chain 1 and turn, and you have those 5 stitches to work with, and you're going to do single crochet stitches, but you're going to go in the back of each loop of each stitch and do a back loop single crochet, just like that. And then you're going into the next stitch and go in the back loop and do a single crochet, and then you're going to go in the back loop of the next stitch. So that's 3. 4 is right here before the stitch marker, and then we're going to remove the stitch marker. Be careful, don't pull your wool with the stitch marker, just remove it nice and carefully. And then for that 5th stitch, you do the same thing. You go in the back loop and grab it and do your single crochet, and then we take the stitch marker and we put it back there, and that kind of keeps us aware of where we need to start changing this type of stitch that we're doing. And now for this 6th stitch going this way, I'm going to go in and do half double crochet in the back loop of my stitches, and then I'm going to continue with this all the way until I have 1 stitch left at the end. And for that final stitch at the end, I'm going to go through both loops as opposed to just the back loop. Okay, so again, this is how this section should look like. It's a little bit snatched in here, and it gets a little bit bigger as you do the half double crochet stitches. So go ahead and complete this until you get to the end. And when you get to the end, come back. Let's say when you have your final stitch, don't work in the final stitch, come back. I will show you how to work into that final stitch and how to start the next row. And then I will have you guys repeat this until we have to change the type of stitch that we're going to be changing, and then also changing the color. Okay, but for now, just work until you have 1 final stitch to go and then come back. Okay, my lovelies, so I have completed this row with just an exception of this final stitch here. So again, as you can see, I do have to go into this final stitch, and I'm going to go through both loops to do my half double crochet as opposed to going through the back loop only. And you just make sure you do that nice and tight like that, and that completes this row. And for me, I do this by going through both loops at the end just to make it a little bit more stronger, and it makes it more neater in my opinion. Okay, so if you do want to do it the other way, which is just going through the back loop for the final stitch as well, that is absolutely your choice. Okay, all right, so now I'm going to show you how to set this 3rd row, and then I will have you guys build up a number of rows before we change the stitch. So for this, again, we chain 1, turn your work, and then in the very next stitch right after your chain 1, you're going to go in the back loop and do your half double crochet. and then go in the next stitch and do your half double crochet. Okay, and then in the next stitch go in the back and do your half double crochet, and again you continue your back loop half double crochet stitches until you get to the stitch marker. And then when you have reached there, you remove the stitch marker and do your single crochet in the back loop, replace your stitch marker back, and then do the remaining 4 stitches by doing the single crochet stitches in the back loop. And this is for the final one, just like we did on this side. For the final stitch, try to go through both loops. If you go through just the back loop for that as well, it's fine. But just because of how I work and how I want to stay consistent, I'm going to go in the back loop of the final stitch on both sides, on either side, whether it's this side or that side. Okay, now do this for 8 rows, and when you have completed a total of 8 rows, come back. We are going to change the color, and then we're going to also change the type of stitch that we do for a few rows before we go back and repeat this. And then from that point on, we just kind of continue to repeat the project until we have the size that we're looking for. Okay, so for now, just continue to do this until you have 8 rows, and then come back to the video. So pause it here, save it, make sure you don't lose it, work your 8 rows, and then come back after that. Okay, see you guys in a bit. Okay, my lovelies, I've completed my 8 rows here for our hat, and as you can see, this is pretty much how this section of the project looks like. And so now we're going to change color, and then we're going to change the stitch as well. So for the changing of the color, I'm just going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut the yarn somewhere, let's say here. Okay, and then I'm going to bring in the cream or lighter color that we're going to do for the next 2 rows, and we're also going to make sure we do a different stitch. So that's what we're doing now. Okay, so I'm just going to show you how to change the color here first. So as you can see, I did my final half double crochet going through the both loops of this row here in the final stitch. So I'm just going to undo that final stitch so we can work our different color into it. So as you can see, I have my 3 loops like this, and I'm gonna yarn the white color or the cream color in and go through all 3 loops like that with the new color. Okay, and then I'm going to chain 1, and then I'm going to turn my work. So I'm going to turn my work this way so I can start working on the other side. And as you can see, I have the 2 strings here. You can either leave them here and weave them in later, or what I will try to do here is I will try to work them into this next row. So I'm just gonna kind of hold them higher like this. And for this stitch right here, we are going to do a half double crochet going through both of those loops as opposed to just the back loop like we've been doing. And then I'm going to bring it back, and as you can see, I have my 2 strands kind of weaved in at the same time. And then I'm going to yarn over and go through all 3 like that. Okay, all right, so now we're going to change the stitches here. So I am going to start doing a puff stitches. So I am going to go into this next stitch here and do a puff stitch, and I'll show you how to do that. So I'm going to yarn over, go into both loops of the next stitch just like that, bring it back. You have 3 loops on the hook, you yarn over again, you go into the same stitch for the second time, you have 5 loops on the hook, you go 1 and do that again for the 3rd time. You will end up with 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 loops on the hook, and then you're going to yarn over and go through all 7 loops like that. Okay, so what we have done here is we just created a puff stitch, and then you're going to chain 1 to lock that in. Okay, and then you're going to skip this stitch right here. In the next one, you're going to do your puff stitch right there, and again you're holding your 2 strings to be able to weave them in. And if this is not something that is easy for you, please just leave them here and you can always weave them in individually later. So you do your puff stitch by doing the first round has 3 loops on the hook. You go again and you will end up with 5 loops on the hook, and then you go for the final round, and it will give you a total of 7 loops on the hook altogether. you yarn over, go through all 7 stitches like that, then chain 1 to lock it in, and then you skip this stitch, and in that stitch right after that you do your puff stitch again. And by the way, these puff stitches can be done to make them the sizes that you want. So if you do want a puff stitch that is a little bit smaller, then you can just go into the loop, into the same space twice instead of 3 times, and it will end up giving you 5 loops on the hook instead of 7. And if you want to have more puff stitches, or like the puff stitch to be a little bit bigger, you could go in for the 4th time, and that would give you 9 loops on the hook. And then that makes the puff a little bit bigger. So again, I'm going to do one more here, and I'll have you guys repeat. So we skip this stitch. In the next stitch, again, I'm still holding my 2 strings to weave them in here, and I'm just going to go through. I have 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, go into the same hole or same stitch, bring it back. I have 5 loops on the hook, go back into it for the 3rd time, and I finally have my 7 loops on the hook, and then I yarn over and go through all 7, and then I chain 1 to lock it in. So as you can see, this is how our puff stitches look like. With this color being a lighter color, is a little bit hard to see on camera, but it's gonna be really nice when you do this. So again, I'm still continuing to hold my 2 strings to weave them in. I'm going to do puff stitches all the way until I get to the stitch marker. So let's say you have 2 stitches after the stitch marker left, come back, or if you have 3, come back. And then I will show you how to do the final puff stitch, and then how to continue the rest of the row, and then how to start the new row. But for now, just repeat what we have done here all the way to the stitch marker. Okay, my lovelies, so as you can see here, I've completed this row, or not yet completed, but almost about to complete it. I have 2 stitches here that are not the 5 stitches that we're working single crochets into. So again, I have completed my puff stitch here, so I'm going to do a chain of 1 to lock it in. I'm going to skip this stitch just like we've been doing, and into that final one I am going to do my puff stitch. So go into the same stitch 3 times, and then yarn over, go through all 7 loops, and then chain 1 to lock it in. Okay, and then we're going to remove our stitch marker temporarily. So just remove that guy, put it on the side, and then in that very next stitch there, we're going to go in the back loop and do a single crochet, and then in the next stitch do a single crochet, in the next stitch single crochet, in the next stitch single crochet, go through both loops for the final stitch and do your single crochet. So just like that. Okay, so this is what the rows look like so far. And then we're going to do one more row of the puff stitches, and then we're going to go back to repeat these stitches that we've done here. So to start that row, we're going to chain 1 just like we've been doing, and then go back and do your single crochet stitches in the back loop from the very first stitch for the 5 first stitches. So just like I am doing here. Okay, and again, you can do this with any colors. It just happened to be that I'm doing this for Christmas, so I am doing it in what is red and white, even though this is a little bit of a deeper red and this is a little bit of a creamier color. Okay, so after my 5 single crochet stitches there, I'm going to put a stitch marker in that 5th stitch, and then I am going to pretty much go right into working my puff stitches. And the next puff stitch that I'm going to work into is this stitch right here, because we're skipping this one. So we're going to go into this stitch right here. So just make sure you are skipping a stitch. It gives it a nice gap like it does here. So skip this stitch, and in the next stitch right here, we're going to go in and do a puff stitch. So that's 1, 2, and 3, just like that. You have 7 loops on the hook, as you can see here. Yarn over, go through all 7, and then chain 1 to lock it in. Okay, and then you skip this stitch right here. In that stitch you do a puff stitch. So yarn over, go through, you have 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, go through again into the same stitch. You have 5 loops on the hook, yarn over, go into the same stitch again, and you have 7 loops on the hook, yarn over, go through all 7 loops, chain 1. Okay, so this is what it gives you. It gives you something that looks like that. and then you skip this stitch and into the stitch. You repeat this all the way to the end. So go until you have finished your final puff stitch, and then come back and I will show you how to finish this row off and then how to start another row. And with this new row, we're changing the color back to this reddish color, so we can do another 8 rows like this. The changing of the color is up to you. If you want to do, for example, these rows here in white and then the puff stitches in red, it's up to you. If you want to change and just do a completely different color for the next couple of rows, that is all up to you. But for the sake of this tutorial, just go ahead and do your puff stitches until you get to the final puff stitch here, and then come back and I will show you how to change color back to this color, and then to go back to starting this, and then that's going to be our repeat until we have the size that we're looking for. Okay, so I will see you guys when you get to this end here. Okay, my lovelies, so as you can see, I've done my puff stitch. This is the last one here and I have one more to go. So I'm back at this point here to show you how to finish the rest of the row here. So with having done the puff stitch in this very last spot here, of course I'm going to skip this section, and in the next one I'm going to do my final puff stitch for this row, and then I will finish it off with a half double crochet at the end, because we have one more stitch to go into. So as you can see, and then I chain one to lock it in, and as you can see, we cannot stop it like that. So for this final stitch right here, we're going to go through both loops for the final stitch and do our half double crochet just like so. Okay, so that is now the end of the puff stitches here. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm going to just cut this yarn here. I can cut it anywhere here. Okay, and then I'm gonna bring in the red color, and we're going to go back to repeating the 8 rows of the half double crochet stitches in the back loop, with of course the exception of always this section of the 5 stitches where we do single crochets in the back loop. Okay, so again, to change the color here so I can go back to this, I'm just going to undo this final stitch here. So not the whole thing, I'm just going to undo it until I have just the 3 loops on the hook like that. And then I'm gonna bring in my red color and just kind of weave it into it like this, and go right through all 3 loops on the hook like that. And then now I have these 2 strings hanging here, which I plan to weave in like we did the other side. And then I'm going to chain one just like we do for start of each row from either sides. Then I'm going to bring my 2 strings in. I'll hold them in a way that it will allow me to go into that. So I'm going to yarn over, because we're doing a half double crochet stitch going through both loops, and then I'm going to go into that final. So I'm just going to show you guys again, if you're weaving these in, because they do end up hanging in the bottom like this. So I just yarn over like I was going into this stitch here, but instead of going into this stitch like this, I go into this stitch from the bottom of the 2 strings like that, and then I bring them through, and then I complete my half double crochet. And keep in mind, we're doing these half double crochet stitches on this in this row by going through both loops, and then you're just gonna work a half double crochet into every single stitch across, and again, you're going through both loops, not just the back loop for now. And then when you get to the stitch marker, you change and go back to doing the single crochets in the back loop for those 5 stitches at the end. And then when you go through the final stitch, which is where you're going through both loops, you're going to chain 1, turn, and then you do your first 5 stitches in single crochets in the back loop. And then when you get to the stitch marker, after the stitch marker, you work your half double crochets going through the back loop. Okay, so I'm gonna show you guys how to do this all the way to the end. So go all the way here. When you get to the stitch marker, remove your stitch marker, work your single crochets in the back loop, and then do the final stitch in going through both loops. And then I will meet you at this end so I can help you start the next row with me. Okay, so you guys in a bit. My lovies, as you can tell here, I have reached the end of this first row of the red color again after our puff stitches row. And so for this row here, I'm going to just quickly show you how to start and go beyond these 5 stitches so that you can repeat what we did here. But you just do again the chain 1 like that we always do, and then turn your work and then go into the very first stitch there in the back loop and do a single crochet. And then you go into the next stitch and do a single crochet, and then into the next stitch and do a single crochet. In the meanwhile, just remember to go through all the back loop only at this point. And then you're going to reach the stitch marker, take the stitch marker off, do the 5th stitch into the back loop and do a single crochet, replace your stitch marker back, and then now you're going to work your half double crochets going through the back loop, and you're going to do this for the remaining stitches all the way to the end. Okay, and then when you get to the very last stitch, you go through both loops, and then you chain 1 and you turn, you work your half double crochets in the back loop again back this way until you get to the stitch marker, and then do your final 4 or the final 5 as single crochet stitches in the back loop except for the last one again, and then you chain 1 and you repeat, and you repeat this for another 8. You're going to repeat this for another 8 rows like this here. So let me just stop crocheting so I can actually talk to you cohesively. So you're going to do another 8 rows like this. When you have your 8 rows like this, you're going to change color to the white or whatever color you're changing it to, and then do your 2 rows of these puff stitches just like we did here, and then change it again into the red color, do 8 more, and then you're going to work that until you have the size of the hat that you're looking for. I don't know, for me it could be anywhere between 20 and 24 rows, I don't know, but you're going to pretty much use your tape measure. And let's say your head, you're going to measure the circumference of your head like this, pretty much going right in front of your forehead and then going around the bigger part of your head. Okay, and you measure it, and whatever the circumference of your head is, you're going to do these rows to fit that. So all these rows are going to end up working until this section here is going to stretch to be the circumference of the biggest part of your head. And when you have that, then you stop and then you come back to the video, and then we're going to see how it looks, and then we're going to join the 2 sides together like that, and then we do the rest of the joining, and the hat is going to be ready and done by then. Okay, but I also want you guys to stop whatever number of rows you're going to do. Your final 2 rows are going to be the puff stitch rows. Okay, because we're gonna join it to this side and we need to have the consistency of the way we're working with the whole project. So whatever you do, make sure your final 2 rows are going to be the 2 puff stitches. And yeah, so go ahead and work your work here. It's now just repeating what we have done here until you have the size that you're looking for your hat or the person that you're making this for, and then you come back and we will move to the next step together. Okay, see you guys in a bit. Okay, my lovelies, so I have gone ahead and completed the number of rows that I do require for my hat, and as you can see here, this is the last 2 rows in the puff stitch that I completed, and this is what I said in the video previously, that you needed to make sure you finish with the 2 rows of the puff stitch. And as you can see, this is pretty much how the whole piece looks like before we join these sides. And of course, the reason we're finishing it with this is because we're alternating by doing 8 rows of the half double crochet in the back stitch, and then we have 2 rows of the puff stitches, and then we continue to repeat that alternation until we're here. So because this is the length that I want, or the size that I want, I end up finishing with the 2 rows of the puff stitch here. And the reason for that is when I do turn and connect the 2 sides like this, it's going to be a continuous pattern that we're working with, as opposed to me doing more rows of this here, and then when I connect it to this side, it makes it so that I have 16 rows altogether of this, but that's not what we want. We want to make sure we alternate it like this. So I'm stopping here because this is the size. If you stretch these like this, it's very stretchy. So I'm stopping here because this is the size of the hat that I'm looking for. And so I stop with the puff stitches so that when we join these 2 sides, it continues with by having the same pattern that we've been creating here. All right. So with that said, I'm going to make sure I disconnect here not quite disconnect. As you can see, I cut off the yarn already and I have a long tail left like this, so please do the same. But what I mean is I'm just going to slip stitch here. So I'm going to do a chain one and pull, and then we're going to lock it in like that. And I'm going to use this yarn that I have left here to connect the two sides here, and then we will use the red that we had left hanging from the beginning to connect the top here. Okay, now I'm gonna go ahead and join this with you guys, and then after that we will move on to the next step together. So I pretty much take my darning needle and I will insert my yarn in the hole, pull it through, and then I'll just line up my work like this. I'm right-handed, so I will start joining from this side to this side, so from the right hand to the left side. If you're obviously left-handed, most likely you will start from this side and move your joining up this way. But I'm gonna just line it up here so I can join these sides. So from here, I'm just going to go through the very first stitch here. I'm going to go through both loops. So hopefully you can see that I'm going through both loops here. And then I'm going to grab both loops on the opposite side, and I'm going to pull, and it's going to connect these two sides like this. And I'm going to do that one more time in that exact same stitch. And it's the very first stitch of the work, and that is just to make sure that it's going to be nicely joined and tight. And then I'm going to move on to the next stitch, and I'm going to go through both loops on this side. Sorry, the white is a little bit blurry because it's just a color that doesn't show too well on camera. And then I'm just gonna move on to the next two stitches and do the same thing. So once go through both loops of the stitch on this side and on the other side. So again, I go through these two loops here, okay, and then I just match it to the other side, and then I go ahead and I pull. Then I move on to the next, and then grab the other side the same way, and then pull. And of course, you're going to repeat this all the way up until you get to here. So when you get to here, please come back to the video and I will show you how to end this side and then how to join the top. So just continue to join this using the exact same way all the way here. And by the way, when I say use the exact same technique to join, you don't have to. If you have a technique that you absolutely love for doing your joinings of your crochet stuff, use that. So for me, it's just happened to be this is one that I use the most, so I often end up using the exact same technique to join. So yeah, but whatever technique you may have that is different from mine that you prefer over this one, please go ahead and do that. Okay, but anyhow, go ahead and join your work all the way to the end and come back to the video when you have reached the end. Okay, my lovelies, so I have pretty much joined all the way here and we're now on the top. So as you can see, mostly the white color is not very visible. Maybe if I do it more like this. So anyways, I've joined all the way down. I'm all the way on the top here. So I'm just gonna go through and do that final stitch more than once, just like we did at the beginning, just to make sure we're securing this section completely. Okay, so now that I have completed that part, I'm just going to remove my stitch my darning needle and just kind of look at this nicely like this. So as you can see, this is pretty much so far how it looks like. It looks like a little cute skirt like that, but that's obviously not what we're making here. So we're gonna go ahead and do the next step. So we're gonna leave this wet yarn hanging here, and we're gonna grab the red one that we had left at the very beginning of our work. And the reason I'm choosing to do it with this, as opposed to just continuing with this to shut the top here, is because majority of the work in the blocks is in this color. So if I go through here and then maybe just 1 or 2 stitches passes through the white part, it's not as visible as if I was to run this white color across here. Okay, so that's the only reason why I'm choosing to do it with this color as opposed to the white one. Okay, so just some little information there for you to know. Because you don't want it to look very obvious that you joined it, because the different color is the one that is the most majority showing. All right, so now that we have this, the first part of what we're gonna do here is we're just going to pivot our work this way, and I am going to just go in the very top of our work, and we're just going to insert. So in case you didn't see, I'm just going to insert my darning needle from one side to the other. We'll go here, then we'll go in there. So we're pretty much just kind of like doing one of these things, going in and out on this section. And then when you have enough on your darning needle, you can pull, and just something like that, okay? And then you're going to go ahead and pick more. And this is not something that is very difficult to do. You're just kind of weaving in the yarn, but you're going around the top hole of the hat here. And you're making sure you're not doing one here and then one is over here. You're just staying very consistent, as high on top as you possibly can, but without going off to this other side on the left, okay? So without your darning needle going off, you're just going to continue to weave the yarn like you're trying to hide this red yarn along the top like this. But of course, as you will see, that is not quite what we are doing. We are just going to weave it up here, and then we're going to use it to snatch the top closed when we get to where this white yarn is. Remember, that's where we started to go around the top, so that's going to be an indication that we have reached where we need to reach. So just like that, and then when we have it coming out right where the white one is, we're going to pull it in. And as you can see, nothing is happening yet. The hole is still there. But if you pull the red, look, this is the hole here. If you pull the red, it's going to continue to shut the top like this. Okay, so this is why we're doing what we just finished doing. So you're just going to keep pulling very nicely and gentle. And at the same time, you're going to make sure it's going to stay out nice and straight on top like this. Okay. And now this is a white one. We're just going to keep it on the side. So I'm just going to kind of hide it with my thumb there. And then now that we have that, we're going to continue to hold the top of it like this with your fist. Have it nice and tight. And then we're going to go and grab some from this side and then go through as much as you can and come out on the other side. Okay, so as you can see, I'm just kind of going along. And when it gets to the other side here, I'm going to pull and I'm going to help it shut like this. And I'm going to go from this side to the other. As you can see, it comes off on the other side. I'm going to pull like that. And I just pivot it a little bit so I can continue to do the exact same thing. Like so. Oops. My darning needle came off. We're just going to put that back. So again, you're just going to continue to crisscross your darning needle across the top, because we're trying to bring the top kind of snatched in. Okay, so we have that, and then you're just going to go on this side. So it doesn't matter what side you go from, but as long as you're going across the top to the opposite side, it's going to help you snatch in the top like this. So as you can see, if I go from here to there and I pull, see, it helps bring it in like this. So at the end of it is going to just have like a little bit of a tiny ball on top that is barely a ball. It's more like a flat top of the hat. And that's what we want. We want it to be as flat as possible, because if it's bumpy and it's, you know, like not very nice, it's not going to look very good. So we're just going to do that again. And you can do this as much as you need to do it. So I'm going to stop it here because I don't think I need to continue to do it. And also I have brought that yarn close to where the white one is, because the point is to knot these two together here. So I have that. Okay. So before you take any of the yarn out, you're just going to put your hand on the inside. So take my hand and I go on the inside, and you use your hand to make it flatter like this to see how it looks. Okay. Does it look nice? If your head was to go in like this, would it look like it's kind of a little bit off? No? Okay, it looks good. Okay, so now that we see that it looks good, I'm just gonna knot these two yarns here. I'm gonna pull that knot, and then I'm gonna pull this knot like that. I will do it one more time like that, and then I'm going to just take my yarn, my scissors, and just going to snap these two of them like this. Now these guys are done. We're going to put them on the side. And then you're just gonna kind of play with your hat a little bit, the top of it. You're just gonna kind of like do this with it. And as you can see, that's pretty much how your hat looks so far. Okay, so nothing too complicated. Your hat looks just like this. If you wear it and you want to kind of make it a little bit like you fold in the bottom like this is how your hat would look. Okay, and again, I made this a little bit snatched, so when I wear this hat in the winter, it's going to be like more on the snatchy, on the tight side of my head, because I do have hats that I've made that are also loose, that are a little bit, you know, just kind of like covering your head, your ears. And for me, especially if I do have braids on my hair, obviously the braids make my head a little bit bigger. So if I do something a little bit bigger, it's better for me to wear those type of hats when I have my braids on. But if I just have my natural hair, then these are more the type of hats that I like to have. So this one particularly is one that I made so that I can wear when I don't have my braids on. Okay, so this is just extra information. You may not need it, but I'm just explaining why I'm making it like this. Anyways, so we have one more step. Anyways, you can stop here. So if you have completed this, and by the way, if you flip this to the other side, is the same thing. Nothing is different on the other side. So if you stop here, this is when your hat will be done. Your project is done. You throw this hat on your head and you're ready to go out when the weather is cold. But obviously this is one that I'm making as a Christmas hat, so I will wear it during Christmas. But also, by the way, guys, I made this in these colors like this, so that it's not necessarily something that I have to only wear during Christmas and that's it, and I have to tuck it away until the next Christmas. The colors can be worn at any time. Okay, so usually I tend to make some projects that are very specific to the holidays, which mean if you wear that any other time, it may come off a little bit weird. And the sweater, the Christmas sweater that I have already posted on my channel, is one of those things. It's very, very Christmassy colors that may be a little bit off if you just wear it on a random July if you wear sweaters in the summer. Yeah, but something like this is something that you can pretty much wear at any time during the winter, so you don't have to necessarily wait until Christmas Day to wear it and the next day you have to tuck it away or pack it away. So that's why I'm making it in colors that are a little bit more, not very, very vivid Christmas colors, but it is a Christmas hat. All right, so if you stop here, you stop here. But if you are like me, and I'm going to add a pom-pom, because it's a Christmas hat, guys. Like it's nice if it has like pom-poms on. It's just gonna make it more holiday-like, I think. And this is one that I made with these two colors that we just worked with on the hat here. I did not show you guys how to make the pom-pom because I do have a video on my channel that shows how to make pom-poms. I will link it in the description box below, so you guys can kind of refer to that if you're looking to make one of these for your hat. But I've already made mine here, so I'm just going to show you guys how to put it on. Okay, all right, so I have made it here. I have I have 2 strings here, so but this side is like this. So and this side is just 2 that are cut like this because there was a yarn that I folded into 2. So I have this here. So I'm going to use my crochet hook. I'm going to go underneath like this. I'm going to put my hand underneath. I'm going to just bring the hook right anywhere here. And when I have that, I'm going to take one of the strings and I'm going to put it back to the other side. So just like this. And just make sure you're not going to pull your work or just have a pull that is going to destroy your work. So you're just going to kind of maneuver it slowly, nicely like this. And then it comes out on the other side like this. And then I'm going to take my hook off. And then I am going to go on the opposite side. So as you can see, I did that on here. Okay, this is where it is coming from. And as you can see, the fluff's coming out of this from what I just made. So there, so which means for the other 2, where are they? These guys here, I'm going to do it on this opposite side. So I'm going to do this again, put my hook through. But this time my hook will come through on this side here. And then again, I take the 2 yarns that I have and I bring it through here to the other side. And again, don't force it. If you feel that there's resistance, don't force it. It's probably because it's hooking some part of your work. Or you can also just kind of flip it to the other side and see what's going on. And I will see here if it is hooking on somewhere I don't want it to hook. And yes, as you can see, it is. So I'm just going to, I lost it. I may have to go back. Yeah, I'm gonna go back. So let's flip this guy back like this. And I'm going to go back to the same position that I did it. And I'm just gonna be a little bit careful bringing it through. So I'm gonna bring it through here. So hook it there. Okay, so that one, for some reason, I struggled with it a lot more than I did the other one. But the main thing here is that you just have to have patience when you do this kind of stuff. So I managed to have my patience, and now I have both of those on the other side of my hat like this. So this is where the problem was. It was kind of hooking on and pulling my yarn like this. As you can see, this place here is looser. It's because my hook was connecting to it and loose and getting loose. Anyway, so I have my 2 strings on the inside of my hat, but when you look on top, my pompon is on like this. Okay, so that is set. So I'm gonna go back in to the other side of the hat, and I'm going to just take these 2 sides and I'm gonna knot it as much as I can. So that's one. I usually end up knotting it 3 to 4 times, just to make sure that section is completely secured. And of course, you pull it a lot so that your pompon is sitting very, very tight to the top of the hat and not loose. And when I have knotted it as many times as I can, or as many times as I feel it's secure, I'm just going to take my scissors and cut off the excess yarn. And then that's pretty much it. So we're gonna clean the tablecloth here to remove those fluffs. But that's pretty much it. So I have my pompon on. Now it's a lot more Christmassy, because a Christmas hat without pompons may not quite express Christmassy. But yeah, this is pretty much what we have done here. So this is the end of the project. So again, you can wear it like this and tuck your hair in if it's gonna be a really cold day, or you could just fold it like this. So I usually tend to make them a little bit longer so that I have the ability to fold it like this as well, because it creates that extra warmth and coverage around your ears. So if you wear it and you fold it like this, then you're literally doubling the warmth of it around your ears like this. But this is pretty much the end, you guys. So this was a very, very easy one. I have made some either beanies and some hats on my channel, so go check them out. Some of them I don't have pompons on, some of them are just completely different patterns altogether, so they look completely different than what I've done here. So please go check those ones out as well. They're all on my channel. But for now, I'm gonna stop the video here. Thank you so much again for joining me to the end, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. Bye.